This is the Anthrobiology Podcast, hosted by me, Gabby LaPera. Every 2 weeks, I interview a biological anthropologist about what makes us, us. Hey there, everyone. So glad that you're back here with me. This week on the show, I have Dr. Herman Pontzer, and we talk about energetics and his brand new book, Burn. In the later half of the show, we even have some takeaways for trying to stay healthy, which is always important during a pandemic. In other news, I have officially booked my first cannibal expert thanks to a listener named Carly. I am just so happy that I have such wonderful listeners like y'all. And I don't know, I feel #blessed. Oh, and I did want to apologize for this one coming out a little bit late. I had a very minor medical issue earlier this week, and I've just been extra tired, and it just took me a little bit longer to put this one out. But I am totally fine. No need to worry about me. I am essentially recovered. I hope that you enjoy the show. And as usual, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot me an email at gabby.lapera@anthrobiology.com. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who you think might like it. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Anthrobiology Podcast. Joining me via Zoom, I have Dr. Herman Pontzer of Duke University. How's it going, Dr. Pontzer?
It's a rainy, cold morning here, but otherwise it's great. And it's great to be with you.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm so happy that you're the first person that I'm talking to at 8 a.m. I'm not a morning person, so you're going to get me fired up for the day.
Perfect. Yeah.
So I invited you on the show because I actually really admire your work, but coincidentally, you also had a book come out recently, which is great. And I'm really excited to talk to you about that. It is called Burn. New research blows the lid off how we really burn calories, lose weight, and stay healthy. Herman Pontzer, PhD. That's you. So I think that this is a really good book. I have a feeling, and you also mentioned this to me, that people are going to pick it up. Non-anthropology people are going to pick it up thinking it's a diet book and then open it and be like, wow, there's a lot of chimpanzees and evolution in here.
Yeah. It was a really fun book to write. I mean, I've been interested in how your body burns calories since forever, my whole career basically so far. And when I talk about my work, which was fun to get a chance to do, the typical question you get from non-scientists is, well, tell me about my diet or tell me about my exercise regime. And I get that. And I mean, and making that connection to people, to these like really personal parts of their lives, like diet and exercise, I love that my work can do that. And so the book, I talk about this stuff in the book, diet and exercise, of course, because it's really involved. But my goal was not to write a diet book per se or an exercise. There's not a menu chapter. There's not like do these 5 funny things and none of that stuff. It's more about how do you understand how metabolism works to begin with? What are the principles? How does it work? And then you can either be excited about the science of that, like I am, or you can be excited about trying to apply those principles in your own life. And if people want to do that too, I'm excited to see how that works for them.
Yes. So I wrote my master's thesis on bone metabolism and like greater overall body metabolism. And the number one question I got was, so what should I be eating? Or like, what's the magic thing that'll make me lose weight? And I'm like, nothing. If I knew that, do you think I'd be a master's student making $15,000 a year?
Yeah. But I've come around. I used to, when I first started doing this work, so the first paper I wrote that was in this space at all was on the energy expenditure measurements with hunter-gatherers. That the work was in 2010, but the paper came out in 2012 with the Hadza community. And, that was the first paper that I wrote that had the word obesity in it. And at the time it was fun to kind of be working in a new space, but I sort of pushed back on the idea that like people were just interested in this for their diet and exercise thing. Cause like I was interested in the science, and it's just so cool that you can see the broader stuff going on here. And what I realized is like, no, actually, making it personal and making that connection is really important and really real. And I should be as excited about that as I am in just about the data. So I've sort of come around a little bit on it, but I still haven't written a diet book because I don't think that fad diets work. So,
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get to that. Actually, one thing I did want to mention about your book, in case anyone's thinking about reading it, is that it's really accessibly written in a way that sometimes science books aren't. And I really appreciate, let me tell you all the things I appreciate about your book. One, really excellently written. I'm an editor, so I spend a lot of time reading things that are terrible. So really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Two, really good use of metaphors. I think that you have an incredible ability to break down incredibly complex topics into something that's easily digestible. Three, I really appreciate you using M&Ms as a way to demonstrate the amount of calories you use to fuel things. I don't know. I thought that was great. And four, I really loved all of the personal anecdotes. I actually did want to ask you a little bit about your time. So a lot of your research has been done with the Hadza, which are a hunter-gatherer group in Africa. And the reason that hunter-gatherers are traditionally interesting to anthropologists is because they're living a lifestyle that's closer to what our evolutionary ancestors might have been living, which could give us insight into kind of the environment that we were evolved to survive in. But what is it like to work with the Hadza? What is that like?
Yeah, it's incredible. And they're just wonderful people. And gracious and the hospitality, that have somebody just show up unannounced at your camp, in your sort of on your doorstep and just be cool with that. Just speaks to how sort of easygoing and fun and nice they are. It was mind blowing the first time I went there because I'd read all about it. I'd read all about them and about hunting and gathering in general, what we knew about that, and then to be actually in it and immersed in it, to do the research the first couple of times I was there. It kind of staggers you a little bit, realizing that you're in this, you're in this environment, you're with this society, you're with these folks. And it's so cool. And to see the day to day, because, it's in the same way that when you ever see, read about a society or read about a culture or even for that matter, if you read about, a species or see a show about a culture or see any of the kind of science shows that are sort of focused on, this is what this is like, this is what they always focus on, the big camera ready events and the really big moments. But of course, life is filled with all these small moments, right? And to sort of see that day to day, that kind of rhythm that they're in and connect to that and sort of say, oh, they wake up tired the way that I wake up tired. And their kids run around and cause trouble the way that my kids run around and cause trouble. And they're having that same kind of, couples are having that same kind of, low key bickering argument. I don't speak Hadza, but I can tell what's going on. The same way that I connect to all those things. And so to sort of see on the one level how different it is and how much you do sort of see this sort of textbook hunter-gatherer lifestyle lived out in front of you in real life, but also at the same time, the woven through that is the sort of common humanity that we all have, a common day to day. It's just such a rich experience. Yeah. So I feel really lucky to be able to do it. And it's just really cool to see it. I don't know what else to say.
No, I think that's a really beautiful description of why fieldwork is an amazing experience. Have you ever had any funny stories or incidents that stand out about being amongst the Hadza?
I mean, so many, there's like the big sort of eye-opening ones, like somebody's walking through camp holding a 6-foot long dead cobra. And, it's a kid, it's like 11 in the morning. You're like, what's that about? And it's like, oh yeah, Jim went over and was about to go into his house to get a cooking pot and there was a cobra in his house. So he had to kill it. You're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Just casually.
Does that happen a lot? Yeah, it can happen. You got to watch out, things like that. And just how they're just like so casually just badass about everything. I don't know if they see themselves that way, but you think about like the anxieties that you have as you go out about your daily life, right? I mean, it just sort of seems so different. The kids are always hilarious and fun, and they want to read. Well, one of the really touching things about it is whenever we go, of course, I always go with Brian Wood, he's probably spent more nights in the Hadza camp in the last 2 decades than he has in his own house. And he's wonderful to work with there. And they know him really well. And you can't parachute in is my point. Anyway, but so he has a whole field kit he goes with. And one of the boxes is things like, along with a first aid kit and stuff like that, are field guides to the animals in the area. Because you often see animals that you don't recognize right away. And what's so touching about the community there is that when you go and hang out in Hadza camp and they see these books of these animals, and they live in this ecosystem, they know, they love the books, and they can't, they don't speak English, so it's written in English, so the text is useless, but they know all the animals. And so they will go through, and there will be a crowd around, our little research area in camp, and it's kids, but it's often adults too. And they'll just be going page by page, and they flip the page, and like this, and it's like, the bad-eared fox, or the greater kudu, or even, the tons of species that don't make it to National Geographic fame and that you've never heard of, but they know all of them. And they know the 5 different varieties of that kind of antelope. And I wish I spoke Hadza. When we communicate in Swahili, which they know perfectly well and I'm okay at, but when they get excited about stuff, just like they're speaking Hadza, and I don't catch it very well. But every picture, every new species is 10 different stories about the one time that he saw that one and she saw this one, and the way they behave and how cool they are. And, it's just so amazing. And you think, I wish I lived my life so that when I woke up in the morning, I walked out and I saw that oak tree, or I saw that, chickadee fly through my bird feeder, that I was as excited about that.
Yeah.
As these folks are about where they live. I mean, how cool is that?
Yeah,
and
it's amazing.
I think that's sort of, yeah.
No, I think it's wonderful. They're like old school naturalists.
Oh, completely. And they know everything about everything in that landscape. All the animals and plants, they know them. That's the traditional knowledge, man. It's such a rich corpus.
You have done all this work with the Hadza. You are really interested in evolution, and all of these things together have kind of boiled up in your mind, and you've you have, I suppose, discovered the constrained daily energy expenditure model. Those are a lot of words. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in how individuals spend their energy every day, because, as I like to say, life is a game of turning energy into offspring. And that's kind of all evolution cares about. And so, I mean, our own personal lives hopefully are richer than that. But, from a biological point of view, it's all about energy. And so I'm interested in how, for example, how anatomy gets shaped by evolution to be more efficient at walking and running, perhaps, or climbing, or how behavioral strategies shift to be more efficient about energy expenditure. And I was really excited about all these things, and how, especially in human evolution, how humans changed behaviorally and anatomically, and to burn calories differently. So I was doing things like doing archaeological work at the site of Dmanisi, which is a Homo erectus site, if you've heard of that. The Hadza work came later. I got to work with chimpanzees, looking at chimpanzee locomotion and that kind of stuff. And as I'm doing that work, my idea was I wanted to kind of be able to understand the energy budget of humans or of any other primate in a kind of holistic way, to understand how all the parts fit together and how they evolved to fit together that way. And I realized in around 2007, 8, 9, at my first job as a professor at WashU, that what we needed to really kind of tie the whole thing together was real data on all the calories that you burn every day, what we call daily energy expenditure. Some people call it total energy expenditure. We needed that full picture, the full budget, rather than just doing pieces. And we needed that full budget for humans in hunting and gathering contexts, which, as you said, are the kind of the relevant context for our species. But we needed it for other apes as well, because we didn't have any other ape data like this. And so people had been measuring like activities, like the energy cost of walking or climbing or whatever, but they hadn't ever done the whole thing. We kind of we thought we knew that if you were really physically active, that total number of calories you burn every day would be really big, because you're so active, and you add all those calories that you're being active with on top of everything. And if you're not active, those number of calories you burn every day will be really small. But we didn't have the numbers to really check that. And so we went out and measured. That first project with the Hadza was to go measure total energy expenditures with them, with Brian Wood and with Dave Reichland. And we use this cool technique which allows you to measure it using isotope tracking, basically. So you get a week-long snapshot of how many calories you burn per day, and it's a real physiological measure. And we did that with the Hadza, and we were so sure that their energy expenditures would be really, really high because they're so physically active. And instead, what we found was that even though they're really physically active, they actually burn the same number of calories every day as people who are sedentary, folks in the US and Europe and other industrialized sedentary populations. And that was the eye opener, the wow
Yeah,
kind of moment.
that's wild. I'm trying to be quiet so that you can be like, explain your thing. That's insane. Like, that's definitely
Yeah.
not what I would have expected. Um,
No.
because like you think about, I think the things that people think about when they think about calories, they maybe think about like gas in a car or something like that. Like you drive farther, you
Yeah.
use more gas, but it turns out it's not like that at all.
No. So instead of spending more calories if you're more active, your body just sort of readjusts how it spent its calories if you're more active. That's the punchline. And it turns out it's not just humans, it's other species too. So like primates in a zoo have the same energy expenditures as primates in the wild. If you take a mouse in a laboratory experiment and you have it when it's you lock its exercise wheel so it can't run, and then you measure energy expenditures, and then you let it have its exercise wheel and it runs and runs and runs and runs, energy expenditures are the same throughout the experiment. So yeah, so this is a total change in the way that we think about energy expenditure. It's certainly the change in the way that I think about it, because I was brought up intellectually, trained that the more active you are, the more calories you burn. And it turns out that really just isn't true.
Yes. And I think that what people would want to know then is, so being physically active still costs, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
calories. So
Mm-hmm.
where are those calories coming from? Because they don't just like magically appear.
No, that's right. Yeah. So yeah, there's no magic here. You're still burning the calories that you spend to walk and run on, that still happens. But we have to understand is, and what it took me a while to appreciate too, is most of the calories you burn every day, and even if you're an active person, this is true, most of the calories you burn every day are not on activity, right? They're not on the things that you see or notice, right? They're on things that are under the surface. So for example, your brain runs a 5K every day, right? Your brain burns 300 calories a day. That's a 5K. Your liver is equally active. Your kidneys are active. Your immune system's active, and on and on and on and on and on. All the unseen stuff is actually how you burn most of your calories. And so if you think about like a budget of calories, like energy comes in and energy goes out, if you think about that budget, it only takes a little bit of adjusting the other stuff that you don't see to make room for more activity. And so that's why at the end of the day, after your body adjusts, it's the same.
Right. So I think that there's kind of this framework for what your body's going to spend calories on. So one of them is homeostasis, which is just like maintaining your body, like making sure everything's running the way it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
You're the right temperature, your liver is purifying toxins, unlike that diet that claims to purify toxins.
Right.
But then there's other things too, like your immune system, for example. That's another thing that your body could spend calories on. If you have a cold, you don't feel great, you're probably not going to want to go for a run, and your body's going to funnel those calories towards fighting that cold. Or
Mm-hmm.
reproduction, I learned, is incredibly energetically expensive for women anyway. For men,
Yeah.
less so. um,
Yep.
and then obviously physical activity. So I think that one of the ways that this plays out is something that maybe anyone who's an athlete is familiar with, especially women, which is that if you exercise a lot,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually disrupt your normal menstrual cycle and your normal reproductive cycle, because your body's spending so many calories on physical activity that you can't reproduce anymore. And for men, this is less likely to happen because, again, the cost for male reproduction is lower.
Mm-hmm.
Spermatogenesis just doesn't require as much energy as growing an entire baby.
Yeah. Although it's interesting, my perspective on that has kind of changed a little bit because,
Ooh.
I think the metabolic adjustment that you're doing to spend less energy on other stuff, for most of us, that's a good thing because we're spending too much on inflammation and we're spending too much on stress-free activity and that kind of thing. So that down regulating those things is really good for us. It's probably one of the reasons exercise is so good for you. And by the way, it is really good for you just because
Yes. Sorry.
yeah.
I was tackling the like here exercise doesn't really do much in terms of weight
Yeah,
loss,
yeah.
but no, there are really good things. So sorry,
Yeah,
continue.
yeah. Well, no, but the menstrual disruption and ovulation and all this stuff that like in what's called the female triad for overtraining, that's seen as like this binary thing. Either you're healthy or you're not. Either you're fine or you're having you have overtraining syndrome, and it's kind of binary. And I think this kind of constrained energy expenditure says like, no, it's a sliding scale. And in the middle is really healthy, and completely sedentary isn't great. And overtraining then is just the scale is slid too much. And now, not only you don't have any room left over, you can't cut out the stuff that's fine to cut out. Now you're cutting out stuff that you kind of need. like ovulation.
Right.
And the one thing I'd add is that there's a guy here at UNC down the road named Anthony Hackney, who's done work on the male equivalent of this. So it's not just women that have overtraining syndrome. It's most sort of evident there because when you stop cycling, that's obvious, more evident. But in men, you have lower sperm counts, reduced libido, and that kind of thing too. So it's not just a female issue.
Yeah, definitely. So in general, like if you are not getting enough calories to support whatever it is that you're doing, your body makes choices and starts to shut things down. Reproduction being super expensive, it happens in men too. It's just potentially the tipping point might be slightly different, but we're all human. We're all human. So let's actually talk a little bit about why exercise is actually really great for you. So I think that one of the main points that you made in the book is a lot of people think like, oh, if I exercise a lot, I will be in a negative energy balance, which means I'm taking in fewer calories than I burn, and it will help me lose weight. And your point is that negative energy balance, that is the only way to lose weight. But exercise is not necessarily a way to achieve a negative energy balance. And some people might hear that and be like, well, then why bother exercising at all? And you would say to that,
well, that's not why you should exercise. The good reasons for exercise are many. So exercise helps your heart stay strong, helps your blood vessels stay elastic, which you need so you don't die. It helps you grow new neurons, we think, which is cool. Keeps your immune system healthy.
Yeah, you can listen to that Dave Reichlin interview that I did about growing new neurons.
That's right. That's right. And Dave is on the forefront of this and is great. Yeah. It helps keep you strong. And actually, especially as you age, having some muscle is actually really important. And so there's all the non-calorie reasons to exercise. Now, the calorie-based reasons to exercise is that metabolic adjustment you're doing, turning down inflammation, turning down stress reactivity, getting your reproductive hormones maybe in a healthier place, not sky high. Those are all really important things for your health. And so exercise won't make you thin, but it will keep you from dying. So hopefully that's enough of a motivation to go and do it.
Yeah, definitely. Exercise is really interesting to me because it can help with metabolic regulation, right? So because of the way that our society is structured, we end up with a lot of extra energy, essentially, and our body doesn't really know what to do with it. It converts it to fat, but it can also mean that our immune system has way too much energy and it's chronically inflamed and it's like reacting to things that aren't necessarily threats. That's really bad for us. Like chronic inflammation has terrible health outcomes for us. And it can help match our appetite to our caloric need, and it can help increase our sensitivity to hunger and satiety hormones, which are all things that can be dysregulated, if that's a word, by our modern environments. So that's my little rant about exercise and why it's great. Also, it can help get you outside, and being outside in the sun can make a huge difference for your health just in terms of vitamin D. That's a whole nother episode as well. Sorry, I love vitamin D research. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about constrained daily energy expenditure. How did humans end up the way that we are? Because one of the things that I read in your book is that we use a lot of energy for our brains, like more than other species. And we also have incredibly high metabolisms, which you wouldn't necessarily expect based on the obesity epidemic in modern society. So how did we end up the way that we are? Why do we have high metabolisms? I guess I should ask you first so we can establish that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've discovered in all this work trying to measure energy budgets, get the full picture of the energy budget across, not just across humans and across human populations, but also across species, is that when you compare human energy expenditures, the calories you burn per day, to that of chimps or bonobos or gorillas or orangutans, humans have higher metabolic rates than other apes do. So we burn like 20% more energy every day. After you correct for body size and all that, we burn 20% more energy every day than chimpanzees do. They seem to burn more calories than gorillas, and orangutans are like these sort of sloth-like low metabolism apes, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, so we absolutely do. We burn more energy per day, and it's not just because we're active; it's because our bodies are just set at a higher metabolic rate.
Yeah, and that's just an evolutionary strategy, right? Like we're
Yeah, well, it does a lot of things for us, right? So I think, why did warm-blooded metabolism evolve, right? Why aren't we all still reptiles? Are there these sort of increases in metabolic rate, generally speaking, in evolution? And the answer is that if you have a higher metabolic rate, you get to do more things, right? You get to do more reproduction, and you get to invest more in survival. And so in general, higher metabolic rates are a good thing for any lineage potentially. The trick is, it's like the price is right, right? If you go over, you're done, right? You should burn as many calories as you can, because that allows you to do all these important things that evolution cares about, survival and reproduction. But you shouldn't go over, because if you go over consistently, that is starving to death, and you're dead. So we can imagine that there's kind of pressure to increase metabolic rates if you could get away with it in any lineage, as a general rule. And in the human lineage, the reason we were able to get away with it and we were able to kind of expand our metabolic rates is, I think, this is one thing I sort of spell out in the book, is my take on it, is that hunting and gathering was the crucial behavioral adaptation, right? Because all of a sudden you have a species that splits its foraging strategy. Some members of the group go for these like low risk, low reward plants. You're always going to be able to come home with calories from plants. Others go for the high risk, high reward hunting for wild game. And, some days you're going to miss, and some days you're going to come home empty handed. And that would be a killer, literally, if that was all you had, but you can share with the plant people, right? And if you come home with a zebra, then everybody gets a zebra. So everybody wins this way. And so it's, hunting and gathering is just this killer strategy that makes more energy available for our lineage. And I think that's the key piece of the puzzle that lets us have these higher metabolic rates, which lets you to have bigger brains and bigger babies, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
The idea of having bigger babies, any bigger than they already are, is exceptionally frightening.
Yeah, fair enough.
But no, this actually, what you've just said ties in. I think it shows the beauty of anthropology, right? Because you're using modern populations. You're looking at our extant relatives, right? Our primate relatives. You're looking at our evolutionary past. It's so cool that you get to look at so many different things, all different perspectives, to study this one idea, which is how are we using our energy? That is so exciting. And I think it's like what really makes anthropology.
I agree. I mean, it's anthropology is a great discipline for people who don't want to focus, because you get to do everything. And I think even within anthropology, energetics, I always say I study energetics because I don't want to have to focus on anything. I get to do reproduction and activity and immune systems and whatever, and diet and exercise, because I like to focus on energy. So it's your skeleton key to everything. Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay, I do still have some questions about energy expenditure. So get excited.
Yeah.
First question, what about people at the extreme, right? So what about people who, not people who are starving, what about like endurance athletes who are doing, say, the Tour de France, or are Michael Phelps and are swimming a ton? Like, how are they fueling their activity in the constrained energy model?
Yeah. The Michael Phelps question, which used to stump me every time I would talk about this stuff. So that's a great question. And we actually had a chance to measure really extreme expenditures in a study. They ran a marathon a day for 5 months from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and let us measure energy expenditures throughout the race, which was really cool. And they're not burning the same number of calories as you and I are here. They've exceeded this constraint on expenditure. So what's going on with that? And if you measure to Tour de France, they've exceeded that as well. And people who do the Ironman, the Kona Ironman, or run the Western States, which ends up out near you guys in Auburn there. Anyway, it turns out that if you look at how many calories you can push your body to burn versus how long you can keep it up, how many days, weeks, or months you can keep it up, there's a really nice relationship there. And it's kind of, you end up sort of describing this metabolic ceiling. And it's analogous to running. So you can sprint at top speed for 10 seconds. If you're going to run a full lap around the track, you got to go a little bit slower. If you're going to go a mile, your top speed is going to be even slower still, and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's analogous to that. If you want to push yourself for a day, yeah, you can probably burn 10,000 calories in a day if you're, trained to do it. And for the Tour de France, I think it's something like 6,000 or 7,000 calories a day, if memory serves. And they do that for a month. These folks who ran for 5 months, they were burning over 3,000 calories a day. Pregnancy ends up being the most extreme thing you can do for 9 months metabolically. And no surprise to anybody, any mothers out there. And so, but that's the limit. And so as you go further out, as your time horizon goes further out, as we approach the sort of everyday, forever kind of time frames of normal daily life, then you find that you're back at that same low ceiling that everybody seems to live under, even if you're a Hadza hunter-gatherer. But yeah, there is that kind of short time frame that you can push yourself higher. And my challenge to anybody out there is, we think we know what that metabolic ceiling is. We talk about it, publish it. If you can break that metabolic ceiling, I'll buy you a candy bar.
You heard it here. Probably even a king size candy bar.
That's right. Of your choice.
Okay, that is really interesting. I think that that's always a really interesting way to kind of get at what the limits of any particular thing that you're studying are, is to look at the extremes on either end. Yeah. So I do want to give some people some takeaways that were written in your book. I will list them off. You can interrupt me and be like, I have more to say about that, or you can just let me go. It's totally up to you.
Okay.
So takeaways for humans. There is no one true diet.
Yes. I co-sign on that. Yes.
Yes. There's not even an average hunter-gatherer diet. There's a lot of different ways to survive. So anyone who's trying to tell you that this is the only way to be healthy is they're lying to you. I feel comfortable saying that. You might not because of legal reasons, but I feel comfortable saying that.
We can be generous and say they might not know they're lying to you. This could be a George Costanza thing where they believe it, and so if they believe it, it's not technically a lie. But yeah, it isn't the truth.
Yes, it's not the truth. So I had Dr. Lieberman on earlier this year, and he talked a little bit about paleo diet, and I encourage you to go back and listen to that episode in case you're curious about it. The paleo diet people who have paleo diet trademarked are not necessarily actually reflective of what the diet was in Paleolithic times.
True.
Anyway, things that you can do, though, if you are trying to lose weight or to maintain weight. It's true that having a negative energy balance will help you lose weight. So in that sense, whatever diet you like and can keep you in a negative energy balance is a diet that could be right for you.
Yeah. And, we can even talk about some of the principles that, that we know tend to work for people.
Yeah.
And diets that have more protein, that have more fiber, tend to make people feel full on fewer calories. Mm-hmm. And diets that are full of processed foods, ultra processed foods, the kind of things with an ad campaign and a long list of ingredients in the middle of the supermarket, usually. And those are, we know that ultra processed foods, which are literally engineered to be overeaten, surprise, surprise, lead people to overeat. And so, you want to avoid that and eat as much as you can whole unprocessed foods.
Yeah. Yeah. Stay away from things that are calorically dense. Twinkie, calorically dense.
Yes.
An entire head of lettuce, not calorically dense.
Absolutely. That's right.
There are other things that you can do, like we can also modify our environments, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that the way that we've engineered our environments on a kind of societal scale makes it really hard to stay the right way, right? Or a healthy weight, because, we surround ourselves with these foods that our bodies, our brains really want to overconsume because they taste so amazing. But I think being overweight or having obesity is not a sign of personal failing. We've built these environments that really make it too easy to overconsume and make it hard to avoid it. But I would also say that, we have a choice over what we bring home from the store.
Yeah.
And we have a choice about how we surround the environments that we, the sort of micro environments in our homes, in our offices that we surround ourselves with. And I think, that's where you are able to take a bit of agency and try to help yourself if you need to do that and shape that food environment, because you're not going to be able to change the supermarket, but you can change your refrigerator.
Yeah. I have my personal flaw. I'm going to call it a flaw, is that I really love potato chips, specifically barbecue potato chips. I cannot buy a bag and have it in my house. I will not leave it alone. And I know that about myself. So I don't buy them. The only time I buy them is when I go on camping trips.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to share with the other people that I've gone camping with, but I am a monster about potato chips.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody has their kryptonite. Mine is Coca-Cola.
Mm.
I was raised on that stuff. And if it's in my home, I will drink it. And I would love to tell you that I won't, but I absolutely will.
Yep.
So I try not to have it in my home.
Yep. I totally get it. I think that there's some other things that you can do, which is it's one of those things that I hate being like, yeah, just lower your stress, because that feels like a very casual thing to say when in reality, not everyone's life is that it's not possible for everyone. But if you sleep more, that can help. If you can remove yourself from stressful environments, like if you're in a toxic workplace, like if you can work to get out of that, again, that can be really hard, right? Because there's like a lot of other things that can be creating stress in your life. But if you can, reducing stress can also help with your maintaining your weight.
Absolutely. And stress eating is a real thing because, that reward that you get from these really highly palatable foods are the same reward systems that light up when you get to talk to a friend or you get out of, that make you feel good and get out of a stressful situation. That's why it feels good. And I would say that, the other thing that I've learned, I've taken away from the Hadza work is that, it isn't just the diet and the exercise. They're outside their whole lives. They wake up and spend their days with people who they care about and who care about them, family and friends. And those are real things. And those are important things that we've lost. I think the number I've seen is we spend 87% of our lives indoors in the industrialized world. And how many of us live in the same town as our family, or, how many close friends do we see every day? It's especially hard in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so, trying to reclaim those things and get outside, I think is also, I just totally, to your point, I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. So takeaways from this episode are: you have a constrained daily energy expenditure. Mm-hmm. That's just the way it is. Exercise is good for you, even if it doesn't necessarily help you lose weight. Mm-hmm. You can regulate your own environment to help you maintain a healthy weight. And Dr. Pontzer is really cool. I think that's pretty much it. You should read his book.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there's nothing else you would like to say to us, I have a final set of 3 questions that I ask everyone. Are you ready?
I'm ready. A hot dog is a sandwich.
They're actually book related, but I happen to agree with you.
And then I would always pick 100 horse-sized ducks. No, a horse-sized. No, sorry. Go ahead. What are the 3 questions?
No, actually, I do think you would pick 100 horse-sized.
I got it wrong. You get 1 horse-sized duck or 100 duck-sized horses.
I would do 100.
They're attacking you in this scenario.
I would still definitely do 100 duck-sized horses. Having grown up around horses, I would 1,000% prefer tiny. Ducks are really mean.
True, but I grew up around horses too, and I don't trust that they would. They're beautiful animals, but they are not real
dumb.
Smart, and they're kind of weird, and they kind of flighty, and I don't know. I don't know what I trust in that situation.
Here's the fun thing: is that horses don't really like stepping on squishy things. So even if they knock you down, they're probably not, unless they're like stampeding.
Yeah.
This plays into horse psychology. I'm now revealing that I am in fact a horse girl. So now everyone knows.
But a horse will kick the heck out of a snake.
That's true. But they're so little because they're duck sized.
That's true. You're going to be safe.
Yeah.
Okay. You've convinced me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Listeners, now you know. No, so the first question is, if people want to learn more about your work, where is a good place for them to start? What is a good thing for them to read?
They should read my book, Burn.
They should.
And it's all in there. Everything I know is in there. So I hope they have a fun time reading it. It was a fun time writing it.
I really enjoyed reading it, for the record. The only thing that was missing, just in case you ever write another one of these, is you were missing a figures and diagrams index.
Oh, the publishers are really picky about that kind of stuff.
I figured it was them. I wrote one in the front page of my book. So in case anyone wants one, I have one.
Nice.
I will post it on the website.
That's good.
Because I'm a maniac. No, but your book was really, really good. I really loved it. Everyone should read it. You also have quite a few articles that are really good that I'm going to post on the website, the ones that are accessible via PDF.
Mm-hmm.
Second question. What are you reading for work right now?
I am reading 2 books, Body by Darwin and the Body and Occupant's Guide, which is by Bryson. But I'm very curious now how we kind of understand not just how our bones work. There's a lot of stories out there about the skeleton, right? And about disease, but like, do people really understand how their kidneys work, for example? I'm curious about that, what the sort of popular take on all of this is. And I'm reading a lot of stuff on energy expenditure, as you might imagine. We have a fun international sort of project going on across different labs, putting all this energy expenditure work together from different labs. And that's required me to go back and dig down into a lot of that sort of older work. So yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Great. And final question, and then you can go about your wonderful day, which is, what are you consuming for fun right now? Doesn't have to be a book, can be a book. Whatever it is that floats your boat.
Yeah, the weather is beautiful here again. And so I am consuming being outdoors and trails around there's really great trails near my house. And so I've been consuming them greedily the last couple weeks.
I really miss the East Coast sometimes. I know I live on the West Coast. The weather's beautiful and perfect here all the time, but I don't know. There's something about Appalachia, especially that I really miss. Anyway, thank you for listening to me. I'm not very together at now 9 a.m. in the morning, but thank you for being the first person I talked to today, because now I feel like I'll be more interesting all day.
I really had a fun time talking. Thanks.
Well, if you ever want to come back, you're more than welcome to, and you have a wonderful day.
You too.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Anthrobiology Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can reach me at gabby.lapera@anthrobiology.com. That's spelled GABY.LAPERA@anthrobiology.com. This show was produced and edited by me. Music courtesy of Chad Crouch, aka Poddington Bear at Sound of Picture.